Taken. Taken. Can't sit here.
You know, it's funny what a young man recollects, 'cause I don't remember being born.
What up, Falcons Nation? Rise Up Nation. It's your boy, Jazzy Jeff. Real talk, no gimmicks. And the phrase of the day is bigger, stronger, nastier on both sides of the ball. This is something Dan Quinn has preached this offseason, something he wants to do moving forward for this 2019 season. So, what does he exactly mean by that as we take a peek and a prediction to break down who makes the 53-man roster? Now, before I go into this, I have learned so much by doing research on the 53-man roster, the practice squad, the rules that go into it, how many you can have, how many you can't have, etc., etc. So before I get into my list of who I think makes the 53-man roster, I will go through a little of the rules first. Now, there is no actual rules on the 53-man roster of which position you can have, how many you can have. It's more of a trend of what teams want to do based on what the GM wants to do. I actually thought there used to be a max, but actually there is no max. So if you wanted to, you could have 7 running backs, but teams just don't do it. But there's technically not a rule against it. Now, as far as practice squad goes, there is a couple rules that make it interesting. So first, for practice squad, you can have up to 10 players on your practice squad. You cannot be on the practice squad for over 3 years. And if you've been on the practice squad for 2 years, the third year, once you've had 1 week of practice squad, you've already been accrued for your third year of practice squad eligibility. Also, you can only have a max of 10, but there's an international exception which allows you to have 11. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the only team who have an international exception. Other notes and trends to follow that helped me craft my 53-man roster list is the Falcons' history, trends, and what we kept back in the day. So bigger, stronger, faster to me means more guys on the offensive line, more guys on the defensive line, and probably more running backs. And I know what you're thinking. We have so many running backs in our stable. How many do you think we're going to keep? So looking at past history, in 2018, the Falcons only kept 3 running backs, but they still had 1 fullback. And the Falcons in 2017 carried 4 running backs and 1 fullback. And in both of those years, the Falcons carried 9 offensive linemen, and they also carried a minimum of 3 tight ends. So, looking at the history to project out my list, we always kept 3 tight ends. We always kept the fullback. And in Dirk Cutter's offense, he also always uses a fullback. And we've always kept 3 to 4 running backs. Since Quinn wants to get bigger, stronger, and faster, and he wants to run the ball more, I'm going to assume that we're going to keep more running backs this year. So these are things that I look at when I'm predicting my list. Remember, the 53-man roster also includes place kicker, punter, etc. So it's a lot hard to think when you first initially look at the list and think, oh, it's easy to just slap a 53-man roster. It actually gets really hard to fit all the guys on the list. So without further ado, here it goes. Here's my prediction for the 53-man roster. Now, with that said, it is technically a crapshoot. Regardless of how much you know or how much you think you know or how much research you do, it is technically a crapshoot, so we do not know officially. But this is based on my research, basically an educated guess of what I think is going to happen. So, for quarterbacks, I only think the Falcons are going to keep the 2 quarterbacks, which is obviously going to be Matt Ryan and Matt Schaub. We'll discuss what happens to the other players later. As far as running backs go, Dan Quinn did say that Kenyon Barner is going to be our official kick returner and punt returner. So this also factored into how it might affect the other backup wide receivers who played kick returner and punt returner during the preseason. So if Kenyon Barner is locked in as a punt returner and kick returner, that means we have to keep him on the 53. So with that being said, I actually think this year we're going to go with 5 running backs, which means you got Devontae Freeman, Ito Smith, Brian Hill, Quadri Olison, who we just drafted, so I don't think that he's going to go move to a practice squad or get released. He's going to make the team. And obviously Kenyon Barner. I think we're going to go less wide receivers this year. And so we got Julio Jones, Sanu, Ridley, Hardy, and I got Russell Gage. This is assuming that Russell Gage is going to be good enough where he doesn't have to go to the IR. Because right now he's obviously still healing from an injury, so I'm not sure on that part. But as far as I know with this list, I think he's going to make the team on the 53 and stay as our 5th wide receiver. Also, another thing I noticed, trends I noticed, that it's also based on what type of defenses the teams are running. So obviously we are switching to a 3-4 defense, so that means we are going to most likely, according to the research, carry more linebackers. If we were running a 4-3, obviously we'd carry more down linemen. So, and also, I'm also factoring in the fact that because we're running a 4-3, guys like Tack and Vic Beasley are going to be listed as linebackers and not so much defensive ends anymore. So, something to keep in mind as I go through this list. Defensive tackle, I have Grady Jarrett, obviously, Tyler Davison, and Deidrin Sanat. Now, on the defensive line, I have Alan Bailey, Jack Crawford, John Kaminsky, Adrian Claiborne. So for our linebackers, I have the Falcons carrying 7 linebackers, which would be, according to the trend, if you're running a 3-4, teams mostly likely running a 3-4 carry 6 to 7 linebackers. So this is still within the realm of, a normal number. So I got Deion Jones, Tack McKinley, Vic Beasley, Devondre Campbell, Duke Riley, Foye Olakun, and your man Jermaine Grace is making the 53-man roster. All right, moving on to the offensive line. So remember, Dan Quinn said he wanted more beef up front. So 8 to 9 is actually a good number for guys who want to be more run heavy and more better blocking. So I got us keeping 9. So I have Alex Mack, Jake Matthews, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGrary, Ty Sambrilo, James Carpenter, Jamon Brown, Wes Schweitzer, and Matt Gano. Now, I looked on the Falcons official website, and they actually had all these guys as locks to make the team, except for Wes Schweitzer. But according to my 53, I have Wes Schweitzer still making this team. Tight ends, the Falcons have a history keeping, like I said, 3 tight ends, which means I got the Falcons keeping Austin Hooper, Luke Stocker, Logan Paulson. Luke Stocker can actually double as a fullback, and Logan Paulson is a great blocking tight end. I'll get into Jaden Graham later. The Falcons also are notorious for keeping a fullback on the roster. We're one of the only teams in the NFL that still use the fullback in our game plan, so I have Ricky Ortiz by default making the 53. Moving on to cornerbacks, I have Desmond Trufant, obviously, Isaiah Oliver, Kendall Sheffield, DeMonte Casey, Jordan Miller, Bleedy Ray Wilson, and that's it for the cornerbacks. For kicker, I have Bosher is a punter. Tavecchio, I think, is actually going to make the team. Reports today, Blair Walsh was 5 for 9. He was horrible in kicking, and I think they signed him just to light a fire underneath Tavecchio so he can do better. We have to remember that this guy didn't miss a kick when it counted in regular season games. So as much as I clown Tavecchio, I think he'll still make the 53-man roster, and I think we'll actually end up cutting Blair Walsh because obviously we're not going to keep 2 kickers. And you also need a long snapper on your 53-man roster, so Josh Harris is going to make the 53. Strong safety and free safety, I have Keanu Neal and Ricardo Allen as our starters, and the backups are going to be Sherrod Niesman and Camille Ishmael. Now, if you're wondering where a couple other guys were that might not made the list because that's the 53, we go to the practice squad. On the practice squad, I have us keeping Danny Etling, Marcus Green, Devin Gray, Justin Zimmer, Chris Odom, Austin Larkin, Matt Sims, Jaden Graham, Sean Harlow, and Zacchaeus. Now, Austin Larkin, you knew he was gonna. We're not gonna release him because he's too good to be released. But based on the base defense that we have and the backups that we have, it is hard for Austin Larkin to crack that 53, let alone make the 46 to dress up. So I have Austin Larkin still making the practice squad because he showed enough flashes on the team to not get rid of. That goes the same for Zimmer. That goes the same for Jaden Graham, who's a great pass catching tight end. But since we already have Austin Hooper, and the other two guys are more for blocking, I don't see him cracking the 53 over those other two guys. Because we need the other two guys for our blocking play. So you got to remember that we're not going to have two pass catching tight ends on the 53. I also thought Chris Odom and Justin Zimmer did a great job. Zimmer's great reserve backup depth, but he doesn't crack past. I don't see him me putting him past the other guys on the line, so that's why I have Zimmer on the practice squad. Marcus Green hurt himself when he fumbled during the preseason for kick returner, and so did Zacchaeus. So that's why Dan Quinn came out and made that statement that he said Kenyon Barner, no matter what, is going to be our starting kick returner. I think so that closed the door on those two cracking the 53 in my mind. Sean Harlow, obviously, no one thought he was going to make the 53, and I thought he was just a great reserve depth to not throw away but make the practice squad. Obviously, now we have Sam Brilo, McGrary, Schweitzer. I think Schweitzer's better than Harlow, and because he's more versatile, he can play multiple positions. And obviously the two free agents that we signed, Carpenter and Jamon Brown, there's no way in hell Sean Harlow is going to make the 53 over those two guys. So those are my top 10. It might be a little iffy if we keeping two camp quarterback arms, but I think that's a good thing to do. Obviously, we still have Kurt Benkert on the IR, so he's probably not going to come back this year. So I'm going to keep two camp arms on my practice squad 10 list. So that is the practice squad, and that is my 53. Please tell me what y'all think in the comment section below. And thank you for watching my video, commenting, sharing, subscribing. And as always, Falcons fans, you know what we do. We rise up. I don't know if I'm going to make a video for the next preseason because obviously it's going to be all backups playing. Tell me what you think. Do you still want to see a preview? Do you still want to see me break down the fourth preseason game? Let me know that as well in the comment section below. Peace, y'all.